We talk Tide with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. His show is The Way It Is. It's on Fox 97.9 weekdays 2 through 6. That's Central Time out of Alabama. Also join me on Mark Rogers TV, and we've got the audio version available for you on Stitcher, iTunes, and Podbean. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Okay, most underrated coach. Now, I'll take it real quick here, Stephen, because I have an issue with this. Bill Snyder is exceptional, and he received 24% of the vote. I think there's a little confusion here as well. After a while, when somebody's considered underrated for a long time, then the rating is probably close to being correct. So I think much of college football has considered the Kansas State program to be underrated. Therefore, Bill Snyder has been credited for the job that he has done in taking a football program that has been in the abyss of college football for its entire history, and then built it into a national power, a top 10 to 20 program. Then he left, they collapsed again, then he came back and he built it up again. It's not in the top 10 range now, but it's very respectable. Beat Texas A&M in a bowl game. 9-4, 8-5 is a typical season for Kansas State. So I think he gets his due. I think most of college football understands, if you're paying any attention, that Bill Snyder is a really good coach. So no disrespect to Bill Snyder, but I think he's probably properly rated because we all know the tremendous job that he's done at Kansas State. He got 24% of the vote. Chris Petersen, of course, the big success at Boise State, getting Washington to the college football playoff last year at 15%. David Cutcliffe doing wonders at Duke up until last year at 10%.
The fighting Bill Snyder to me is not underrated or overrated. He's just an exceptional coach. And you mentioned all the accolades there, Mark, whether it be in 10-win seasons or going 8-4 or 8-5. And people fail to realize, remember Colin Clyde, who was a Heisman hopeful, a Heisman front runner, and Bill Snyder helped mold him. And this is a team that had Ricardo Lockett, not Ricardo Lockett, last name was Lockett, who was a big-time, wide receiver that now plays for the Seattle Seahawks, a big-time kick return and punt return guy. Also remember Darren Sproles, who's one of the productive running backs in the NFL in his heyday. He came out of Kansas State.
Jordy Nelson,
there you go. He came out of Kansas State. So the Wildcats produce talent. They have no problem with producing talent. The reason why I guess they put, Bill Snyder on the list is, well, he doesn't compete for national championships and he doesn't compete for the Big 12, each and every year. The purpose is, you look at Kansas State's fan base. When Kansas State's fan base looks at Bill Snyder, they see a successful coach. Why? Before he came there, this was a rough program. Nobody wanted to touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. And then Bill Snyder comes in, he builds on it, he turns it from being something that you don't want to be a part of to something that you want to work with, you want to have your name announced to it, you feel like you can be a part of it, become one with. And then when he leaves the program, it goes back to, no, that's Kansas State. I want no parts of that again. And then Bill Snyder comes back and he brings it back up. So definitely not overrated or underrated. I think Bill Snyder's rated absolutely correctly. I think he's a fantastic coach. And the same thing for Chris Petersen. I get it. When he came out of Boise, the fly in the ointment school, the crash the party program with the BCS is concerned. But since then, he still has that quiet confidence about him. Took a Washington team that's got a lot of talent, especially on defense. And Alabama saw this firsthand. Washington, a lot of talent on defense. Taylor Rapp comes back. Keyshawn Bierria comes back offensively. Jake Browning, Myles Gaskin, LeBron Coleman at wide receiver, Dante Pettis. They have a lot of talent coming back for Washington. So Chris Petersen, not underrated by any known means. People really do respect him. Now, Ken Niumatalolo, I don't know why this name is on the list. Ken Niumatalolo wins. I don't know why he's put underrated. Are you kidding me? This is the same Ken Niumatalolo that beat Houston last year and knocked Houston out of a chance of getting into the college football playoff. So if anybody's being underrated, it's certainly not Niumatalolo. He's done exactly what Navy wants him to do. If Navy never competes for a national championship in the rest of Niumatalolo's coaching career, you will never hear grumbling about Niumatalolo's on the hot seat. You will never hear that, because he has brought Navy exactly what it wants: a consistent winning program. Navy is winning 8 to 10 games a year, which is exactly what it wants. It's in a bowl game. It's consistently beating Army, with the exception of last year. And then, most importantly, this is a coach that really, gets these kids to understand not just the academic side and the football side, but the service to your country, as a lot of these boys are leaving as men serving the United States of America.
Niumatalolo, you mentioned Jeff Monken at Army, who pulled off the win against Navy for the first time in 13 or 14 years. They won 8 games in a bowl game last year. What Fisher DeBerry did at one point at Air Force, and now Troy Calhoun, where they repeatedly year after year get to postseason play and win 8 or 9 games. It's astounding to me. I don't think we give the service academies anywhere near enough credit, considering that these young men are focused on academics and their military training. Their time devoted to football is very limited. And then it especially, well, across the board, really, but especially at Air Force, the limitations on weight and size, and then to go out there and to compete against the likes of major conference opponents and to get to postseason play on a regular basis. That astounds me, that those young men who do not have an eye toward the NFL are able to be, based on sheer technique and knowledge of the game and athleticism and grit and ability to absorb a game plan quickly and execute, can hang with the likes of capable Power 5 teams. It's astounding to me.
Ken Niumatalolo does an unbelievable job. I go back to last year. Last year was supposed to have been Houston's year under Tom Herman to not just get to the college football playoff, but possibly make a run and upset some teams, and to get beaten by Navy the way Houston got beaten by Navy. They got dominated up front in the trenches, and you got to give that man credit. Niumatalolo does a fantastic job. The people at Army, the staff at Air Force, all of those guys, all of those coaches, when you have to learn not just your coursework, but also the work of the military, the work of, being on the field. I read an article from Josh Rosen, UCLA quarterback, that talked about how football is a full-time job where you're doing, not just your coursework, but you're also doing, not just your coursework, but you're also, working full-time on the field, working full-time, in the community. And if you have a part-time job, that too. Well, if you take that and you equate that to, the military, now in the military, you've got full-time football, you've got full-time schoolwork, and now you got full-time military. So take that 2 jobs and make it 3 if you're in a naval academy or a military academy, because you got the school or the academics, you got the limited time on the gridiron, but gridiron nonetheless, and then you're trying to get an opportunity to provide for your country. So it's 3 folds as tough as it is if you're just playing for a D1 school.